at the segment analysis. So the Capstone Courier has a segment analysis page for each segment, and you want to take a look at these for each of your segments and products within those segments. What I'd like to start with, we'll look at the traditional segment here, and I want to point out that this top part gives you information on traditional statistics. We can see that the sales met the demand this round, and we can also see that this segment is a large percent of the total industry. It's 31.4%. And then we have here the segment's growth rate. This is what you should have used to calculate your sales forecast for each of your segments. You'll find this sales growth rate within this traditional statistics, and you would multiply this by the total number of units that you sold last year and then add this to that amount, and that would give you the next year's forecast. Now that's only valid for round one of the simulation. Now moving forward, you'll be using another more advanced forecasting technique that's called the December customer survey method, and I'll create a separate video for that. Right here on the right at the top, you see the accessibility. This has to do primarily with your sales budget. And what you want to keep in mind with the sales and promo budgets is that those are important, and those will contribute to your December customer survey score. You'll be making these decisions in the marketing decision screen. And one thing I want you to note about the sales budget is that you're going to lose about 33% of awareness each year. And you'll want to pay attention to that fact because you'll ideally want to get your total awareness up to 100%. Once it gets up to 100%, you won't need to invest as much into your sales budget. And I would suggest when you're making these decisions, you play around with the numbers in the marketing, and you can use that to judge different scenarios to see how, as you increase and decrease your sales budget, how that impacts the benchmark and the other estimates that are on that screen. Down here we see the actual versus potential market share. So it looks like for the most part this round, each company had supply and demand meet each other. Here's the perceptual map for this segment. What I would note here, just to remind you, is that you've got these two circles, an inner circle and an outer circle. The outer circle is your rough cut. As your products drift outside this circle, they'll lose all demand. Within this fine cut circle, as you drift outside of it, you will lose some demand. You'll want to try to keep your products within the appropriate fine cut as much as possible. But as they drift outside, depending on if you're using a life cycle strategy, they'll probably have a little bit of a bumpy road as they fall into the outside the fine cut and then outside the rough cut and transition into another segment. Last but not least, I want to just show here the top products in the traditional segment. We'll notice that these beat an acre are actually from the low end segment, but they picked up some sales here. But as a whole, these two products stocked out, so you can tell that here under the stock out, and that means that they could have sold more units. So I'm just going to scroll down quickly to the low end, and we can see an example of a situation where the actual sales did not meet the potential. And so we can see in this low end segment that Andrews could have sold more products. They could have had approximately 2% more of the market share. And then Baldwin here was in a similar situation where they could have sold more units. And as a result of not having enough units to sell, Chester picked up some sales, Digby picked up some sales, Erie picked up some sales, and Ferris picked up some sales. So that's something you'll want to pay attention to. And you can actually take this into account when you do your forecasting for the next round. But let's come back here and let's look at how to analyze this now. So you want to take a look at the buying criteria for each segment. And so as we see with the traditional customer buying criteria, the most important criteria is ideal age. That's 47% importance. Next is price. That's 23% importance. And what you want to remember is that customers as a whole, with all these different segments, they want prices to come down. So every year, this range is going to drop by 50 cents. And you'll just want to make sure that you're on top of that so that your price does not fall outside the range. The third most important criteria is the ideal position. That's 21%. And then last is reliability. Remember, with the reliability, this affects your materials costs. So, you can improve your margins by reducing the MTBF as long as it's within this range. Also, you can improve your margins by increasing the price. But obviously, as you increase the price, that's going to affect the demand. The demand will drop. So again, going back to that marketing decision screen, you can play around with some different scenarios with the price and see how that impacts the demand by using the benchmark. Remember, the benchmark is just changing proportionally. So if the benchmark goes up by 10%, that means that the demand will go up by 10% in theory. If the benchmark goes down by 10%, then in theory that means that the demand will go down by 10%, and you should adjust your forecasts accordingly. Okay, so let's look at these specifically. Now we know that the ideal age is the number one criteria, and it's 2.0 years. And we see that these top companies in this group, from Eat down to Days, they have good customer survey scores. They're all above 30 here. That's a result of these customer buying criteria as well as the sales and promo budgets, which we see here, and customer awareness and customer accessibility. Now, as we remember, if we looked up at the top, a couple of these companies struggled in this group. We see it looks like Able and Cake in particular had almost as many units of surplus inventory as they sold. And so let's look at those real quick. And we see here Cake and Able only had 8% of the market share, and we see that the age of their product is 4.1 years. So this did not meet the number one buying criteria. And so next round you'll want to make sure to make a revision. The revision will change the age of your product in half. It will cut it in half in the eyes of the customer. And so that alone should help boost your sales for this region and improve the customer survey score and the sales. So that's the main recommendation I would make for this next round, is try to adjust those, because looking here at the coordinate sizes, it doesn't look like, in fact, they are much far off from what the ideal position is. So that's not too bad. And then if we look at the price, both Cake and Able, they're at the higher end, but they're not the highest. So I would say the main thing there is to consider the age and make a revision for the next year.